So each time I'm narrowing in a time, a place, and something else. Now I've just upped your response, the possibility of your response, to about 75%.
Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For sure, Michael, to dive deep on you real quick, you're a Desert Storm veteran, accomplished author, and one of the most engaging voices in the world of professional networking, right? You've spent decades mastering this art of creating authentic and profitable connections for yourself and your clientele, all while uncovering the secret to turning what many see as a chore into a meaningful opportunity. But before we dive in too deep, let's get to know the man behind the method. Michael, tell us, where did you find this passion for networking?
Well, a long time ago, about 100 years ago, I was in the Air Force, and I was a young guy who really outranked a lot of older guys, older people, and I had to learn how to speak to them and tell them what to do without hurting their feelings, so to speak. And that was the beginning of my networking stage, because after that, I went into my own business. I owned a graphic design studio, pizzerias, restaurants. I did it all. And you learn how to talk to different people in different ways. And it's really interesting, the different aspects you get to from there. But when I was in a mortgage business for about 10 or 12 years, I really had a network, because that's my bread and butter. So from there, when I moved down to Georgia, I worked for a law firm as a sales director, and I had to network with people completely different. So it was, my experience really involves all of it, and it's really very interesting.
And of those, were any of them impactful on this idea of uncovering the why when it comes to networking? What was the one that really led to that foundational aspect to kind of your approach?
Well, ever since the pandemic, was really the crux of it, because I realized that all the 20-somethings to 30-somethings, they forgot how to network. They forgot how to communicate. They forgot how to talk with one another without a cell phone, a computer, Zoom, or anything else like that. And they just lost the art of networking. And that's what I'm going. Listen, I speak all over the country. I go to conferences, summits, I do workshops, and I tell everybody pretty much the same story, but it's how I do it. And as soon as I see the light go on, the aha moment, then I know I've reached them.
And do you feel like that audience applies to kind of people in a variety of scenarios, if you will, like the young entrepreneur, the small business owner, the higher up individuals? Is this kind of impactful for all of them?
Absolutely. Actually, most of my coaching clients are small business owners, because I have to really, now, the owners that I deal with are really 30-something, 40-something years old. And it's not that they didn't know what I'm talking about, because what I talk about is all common sense. It kind of reminds them and says, oh yeah, that's how I should do it. And once they use my method, they increase their profitability almost by the next month. So especially the small business owners, because I teach the small business owners, and then they teach their employees, and their employees go out and use it. And it's amazing that the results that they get.
So in this process, what's kind of the first step that people need to be aware of working into it? What's the first major thing that you talk with them to help begin this journey?
Well, I find out which person I'm dealing with. It's the person that deals with their clients one-to-one, or they're going to a networking event. And I usually start them off by saying, okay, you're at a networking event. You just walk through the door. What do you do? And my question is always that. And they say to me, I look around, and I look for a table of people, and I go and I talk with them and everything. I said, well, that's great if you don't want to do business. And they like, What? So what I do is I have them walk up to a table, don't say a word, and they listen. They listen for the conversation. And I have them ask themselves, is this a conversation that I want to be part of? If it is, great. If not, politely bow out and go to the next table. But let's say that it is. So you're waiting for the conversation to come around to you, and you give your 2 sentences or 3 sentences or your idea of what's going on. Because remember, you are the expert in your field. You have to have that confidence when you first walk up. Okay? So all of this confidence building and all of that, that's all leading up to this. And, usually there's like 5 people at the table and they're talking. And if after you say what you have to say, usually 2 people or so respond to you. And so you're kind of like readjusting to those people. And you go to one person and say, well, you know what? Tell me what you do. And I always invoke something called FORM, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, and a message. Okay? So I talk to them, are you married? Are you not? Your children? Oh yeah. Are they involved in sports or occupation? You're in the mortgage business. Oh, that's great. I know somebody else is in the mortgage business. Do you have, and ask questions. Let them talk about themselves. And why do I have them talk about themselves? People love it. People love to talk about themselves. You don't really need to juice them at all because they'll just go on and talk. And you just talk and let them talk and let them talk. And here's the most important part. Listen to what they're saying. Don't think about the next thing that you want to say. Listen to them. Okay? Pause after you listen, and then you respond to what they said, not what you wanted to say next. And that's very important because it shows that you were being attentive to that person. So you respond to them and you say, after they talk and talk, you say, something, I like you. I like what you do with your product. How can I be the best referral source for you? Because whenever you go to a networking event or something like that, never expect to get business. You're always looking to give, always looking to give out and say, how can I be the best referral source? And they're usually so taken back by that they start telling you. And if you did your job correctly, they're going to hand you their business card, and then they're going to ask you, what do you do for a living? But here's the difference. You take that business card, and on the back of the card, you write the date, the name of the function, and something you spoke about. Now that will come in handy later on when you're doing your follow-up. Okay? But a networking event is 3 or 4 hours? You really shouldn't walk out of there with more than 15 or 20 business cards.
Well, and continuing on that with the idea of, but I also want to build authentic and quality relationships. Flip side, how do you know when it's time to move on? How do you know, hey, to your point, I don't want to take the shoebox approach. I want to make sure I find quality leads to follow up with. What would your approach be for someone to recognize, hey, now's the time to move on from this conversation or close or find the next table? What's kind of your approach for that perspective?
Well, after you receive his business card or her business card, you say, something, that was great. I'd really like to get with you after the event. I will email you and we'll figure out a time to speak. It's usually a time where you split. Okay. And then you move on and you do the same exact thing when you move on to the next table. It takes extra time, but you are more involved. You get to know the people. Listen, the time of collecting customers is really gone. Okay? Now you really should be into building relationships. And the way that I the difference between a customer and a client. The customer, think of it yourself in a grocery store, and you bump into it and say, "Hey, Drew, how you doing? Oh, how you doing, Mike? Oh, that's great." And you go. Or, "Hey, Drew, how you doing? Oh, how's your wife? Oh, that's right. Your son was in Little League. He got hurt. Is he all right now?" Have that little conversation. Because in your mind, I've just escalated myself. Okay. And now you're going to say, "Oh, I'll remember. I'm going to remember him." Okay. And you remember and you do that. And that's much more important, building that relationship. And whether you're a single business owner, if you're just one person and you're trying to build your business, this is the perfect way for you to build your business, because you're building your business on the relationship with other people. And listen, I started my graphic design studio. I started by myself with a computer. Okay. I got up to a point where I had 2 assistants and 6 people. All right. So I built on relationships. And the same thing with the pizzerias and restaurants, a little different. I had more employees, but I did it all the same way. Whenever I spoke with anybody, I looked them in the eye, I shook their hand, a firm handshake, and I listened to them. I listened. And that gave them the confidence and the respect, mutual respect, that they can open up to me.
So then for those that you've talked to, maybe like a statewide or a national, convention where you're getting to meet people, obviously not everybody you have a chance to bump back into. So do you have kind of a strategy for ways you follow up with those remotely or some different fashion that would continue to grow that relationship over time?
Yeah, there's a huge difference between a local client, and local, I mean within an hour driving distance, okay, or a non-local. And a non-local, the follow-up is almost the same, but your meeting is, instead of at a coffee shop, it's with a Zoom call. Okay? Now, let me go into what my follow-up really is, what it looks like. When you finish the evening, I just had this conversation with somebody else. And I said, "What do you do? How do you follow up?" He goes, "Oh, next morning, I send them a quick email. I thank them. I want to meet with them," and so on and so forth. If they don't answer me, a week later, I'm going to send another email. I said, "Okay, that's great, because you're going to lose." Who are you going to lose to? Me. Because when I get back from that networking event, I'm going to send that first thank you email that night. And all it's going to be is thank you. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Hope to see you soon, Mike. Put my business card, my email it, and I'm going to email it out. The next morning, here's the kicker. I write a personal, handwritten thank you note. And on there, I just write almost the same thing. "Hey, Drew, this is Mike. I met you on such and such date, such and such time. At this event, we talked about your son. I hope to meet with you soon, Mike." Now, that first email, you have about a 20% chance of them responding to you. With that thank you card, I just upped it to 50 or 60%. You have the 50 or 60% of them responding to you. So you wait three or 4 days. And let's say you didn't respond. I write them an email. "Hey, Drew, how you doing?" Because now you already have seen my name. You've seen my company. You know who I am. "Hey, Drew, this is Mike. I met you on such date, such time. I really want to thank you for taking your time out and meeting with me. I just looked at my calendar, and you know what? I saw that Tuesday and Wednesday of next week are open. Would you be open to meet with me one of those days?" Now, that is for the local person. And if for the person far away, say, "Look, are you up to having a Zoom call?" Okay? Because you can call them by phone, but that isn't quite the same because you don't see them. Now, I always profess meeting somebody face to face, okay? Because you have that personal touch. You see what else is going on. You can get a vibe from the other person, whether you're wasting your time or they're very, very interested in what you have to offer. So now let's say that after that last email, you still didn't respond. I'm going to send you another email, like 2 days later. Say, hey, Drew, how you doing? This is I mentioned such and such date, such and such time. I told you that Tuesday and Wednesday were open. Tuesday seems to be booked up now. How is Wednesday at 3? So each time I'm narrowing in a time, a place, and something else. Now I've just upped your response, the possibility of your response, to about 75%. I don't think I can go higher than that because anything can happen, but still 75% chance, it's a pretty good chance of getting a response. Now, all I'm looking for is a response, positive or negative. It's a response. Now, listen, if you're a dope and you still didn't respond to me, that's okay. I have your business card. I put you into my CRM and you go into a drip campaign once a month. I send out a newsletter or whatever the case may be, but you're on that list. And the only way you come off that list is if you tell me to take you off.
And with that end goal or purpose in mind, does any of this approach change for someone looking to grow like partnerships and to again relationships versus more of like a sales approach, trying to kind of find new business to business clients or stuff like that? Does this approach change at all in terms of how you conduct yourself on kind of that follow through process?
Well, it's if you're selling widgets, that's just a customer-based business. Okay, you want 3 widgets? Fine, I'll sell it to you. You'll come back when you need more. But when you're building relationships, you're building up that partnership because you really want to think about it, and you want it to be a partnership in everything that you do. Now, I'm not talking about a financial partnership, but if you make the other person feel like they are that important, you'll get a lot more out of it.
For sure. I definitely feel like a couple of times we've definitely heard the importance of making sure everyone feels like they win, regardless of the side of the deal that they're on, right? Making someone feel valuable, not only to me talking to them, but also making them feel valuable in their own situation that they're in.
Well, that involves your listening. If you're listening to them and responding to them, then they feel like what they're saying is worth something.
For sure. Man, all this time, getting to that point of networking, do you have a way in which you would find these networking events? Like, is there a good way to track down these events for someone wanting to get started on this process?
There's about 1,000 networking events every day. Okay, there's a network. If you listen, I live in Cumming, Georgia. I can find out 100 meetings anytime I want. So my suggestion is to take your calendar and every other week find a networking event and put it on your schedule. Now, Chamber of Commerce, great place. There's a once a week meeting, an after hours meeting, something like that. There's meetup.com where you have meetings. Everybody lists or posts their meetings all the time. So you can find a networking meeting. There's associations, there's different things like that. And, just go, okay? We're talking about, doing a podcast and just get started. Same thing with networking. Go, because the first time, listen, you're going to be horrible. You're going to be so bad at it, but you go. And next time you go, you can be a little bit better. And then you'll be a little bit better. And then a little bit better. Okay? So now, I say, okay, at the networking event, you get 15 business cards. That's great. That's easy. But now the second networking event you go to, well, you get 15 more business cards. Then you have 30 cards. And then 2 weeks later, you're going to get another 15 cards. That's 45 cards. You're going to begin to lose track. That's where a CRM, it becomes so important. And if you put all the information in and you put your timing in and you set up templates and for emails and everything like that, it'll go a lot easier. Because if you're not organized, that is the number one failure. If you don't follow up and follow up correctly, you might as well not even go in the first place.
And before we get too much into that CRM side, you had brought up previously that you've been a part of multiple businesses, right? From pizzerias and stuff. To that point, do you have an idea of which certain events may be best for someone? And I'll throw out my own example, right? For someone starting an ice cream shop, or to your point, someone in a graphic design studio. Are there certain events that are better tailored to those from your experience?
Well, you have to figure out where your lane is. Okay. So listen, when I worked for a lawyer, that was the lane because I looked for other lawyers. I looked for title companies. I looked for different management companies, everything that had to do with lawyers. When I was with mortgages, I dealt with a lot of realtors. So mortgage meetings, realtor meetings, financial meetings, insurance meetings, that's the lane that I stayed in. Okay. So you really have to figure out what your lane is and really stay in it. Now, you may see an event here or an event there. You can make the decision whether you're going to go to it or not. I would suggest don't go. Stay in your lane and get good at it. When you're really that good, then expand it.
And I'm sure, too, not every event is necessarily called a networking event or a convention, if you will. Maybe there's, a golf tournament that's supported and funded by this group. Do you still see value in some of those? Like if it's a mortgage brokers funded golfing tournament to support, a local school or church or whatever, do you still feel like some of those are worth going to, or really stick to like the networking focused style events?
Well, that's more for branding. Okay. So let's say there's a golf tournament and I sponsored the 9th hole. Okay. Michael Forman, public speaker. Okay. That's, I don't expect to get business from it, but it's like when you see the billboards of the accident attorneys, just their name, and there's no contact information on that billboard. What are they doing? They're branding themselves. It's just so everywhere you go, you see their name. So when I go to a golf tournament, because I go to many of them, okay, they're but funded by one certain group for another. Okay, I don't go, but the people who are in my foursome, my 8, you begin to talk. And if you are the expert in your field and you talk intelligently about things, then you listen. I've done enough business on a golf course to know that it's always worth it.
So maybe those style events are better for that follow-up phase, right? Once you kind of have that quality list of people, find ways to get them involved locally in your community or at these events if you're traveling. It sounds like that's a good way to stay involved with these people and continue to grow that relationship.
Always stay involved, whether it's a nonprofit, find something that you want to become involved with, and you just do your job. Because when you're there long enough, you meet the people, you get to know the people, then you begin to figure out what everybody does for a living. Now, you're not just talking to them, okay? You're talking to their networks as well. Because, look, I can't really help you, but I know somebody who can use your services, and I'll put you in touch with them. So always do your best. Always do it. Don't think of business. Don't think of promoting. Like, I was at a table, a networking table, and about 5 of us there, and a guy comes walking up to us with his business cards in hand. Here. Take my card. Listen, let me have every one of your cards. Okay, that's great. Listen, I want to talk to each and every one of you, but I'm going to try to get to somebody else right now. So, be prepared because I'm going to contact you. He left. And everybody's looking at the card, and everybody just threw his card out. So it's the same thing. You go, you're looking to give. You go to do the work. I'm a big fan of Tunnel to Towers and what they do. I'm a veteran, so it means a lot. And I look to help them in every which way. But, any nonprofit group, any local group, just lend a hand. Lend a hand, and your name will get out there. Your business will get out. And before you know it, somebody will ask you about a circumstance that they're in, and they'll ask for your advice.
Wrapping back in that CRM is not necessarily something somebody would think about, and I'll keep with the ice cream shop analogy here. When, there's so many things, like a CRM isn't necessarily the first thing you're thinking about as you're growing this brand or as you're growing this niche, is not to necessarily start this CRM. So to build with it, how should someone start small with a CRM? Is there an easy free application to run with, or just keep it listed like an Excel sheet? How would you go about a CRM for someone who's, again, it's not on the front of their mind, but to your point, it's good to keep track of?
Most CRMs have a free version. Okay. I personally use HubSpot. Okay. And HubSpot has a free version. And I use that free version for 20 or 30 people. Right. And I got to familiarize myself with how HubSpot handles it. But in the same time, I was keeping all those people organized. When it became too much, then I had to go in and pay for it and so on and so forth. But even with an ice cream store, okay, your customers, you're really not going to keep, their name and contact information. But your vendors and other people that you want to connect with your vendors, other business people, other people, let's say you buy a franchise. I own the Ben & Jerry's. So other franchises, you may want to keep their information in it. And it's a great place. And if you keep it all on paper or in a notebook, that's old-fashioned.
Does this CRM then stick with the brand that you're a part of, or does this more so your own personal brand? Like, is it Drew's personal CRM, or is it my Ben & Jerry's franchise CRM? Do you kind of differentiate the two, or how would you take that approach?
No, because really the fields that you create, say vendor, you can say ice cream, you can say whatever else, but you may put personal. Okay. So everything goes into it, but when you go to filter it out, all personal, just filter personal. Up will only show the personal contacts. Okay. So the CRM is for everything and everybody. As to how you label it. It's very important. You must stay organized. And if you're not organized, I don't care how big your business is, whether you're one person, 5 people, 10 people, if you don't have that organization, you're not going to be in business very long.
And that makes sense. Definitely finding a way to tag, to be able to filter out some of these contacts in the future definitely seems to be a pretty key. Again, if you're talking at some point this gets to hundreds of people, I can see the need to kind of filter it out based off of what you're wanting to look into. It's kind of those ideas and build off of that. What are some of the biggest common mistakes that you know of with people when they're managing their own CRM? Are there things that you help them overcome as your clientele?
Well, listen, there are a lot of things that people overlook and they fail. Okay. Number one thing is the follow-up. Either they don't follow it up or they follow up wrong. Okay. Either one of those two, and you're going to fail. Okay. If you don't set your CRM up properly, you don't label it properly, you won't fail necessarily, but it'll take you a whole lot longer to get what you want to get. Okay. So you remember that the work that you put in the beginning will create much less work for you afterwards. Right. So, the failure, and really it's up to the owner of the company. And I don't mean work because I work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, 7 days a week. Okay. That was in the pizzeria, the ice cream stores, that was what it was to make the money. Okay. Now I'm in a different place. I have my working hours and that's it. Okay. And my weekends off. So very different. But when you're just building up your company, you have to get in with both feet, but when you hire like-minded people, you have to, this goes back to, the customer is always right. That's wrong. That's so wrong. You have to keep your employees happy, your employees right. When I was in the Air Force, they said, okay, I was a police officer in the Air Force. And they said, look, I don't care what decision you make a decision. Because if you don't make a decision, you're going to hurt 10 more people. Okay? So listen, so if you make a decision and you're right, that's wonderful. If you make a decision and you're wrong, we'll take care of it. But you have to make that decision and you're going to learn by it. The same way in business. Okay? You need to make that decision. Okay? And if it's a wrong decision, if it costs you some money, yes, it's going to cost you some money. You fix the problem, but you learn by it.
And for those who have listened to today's episode and are looking for what's that one major piece of advice to take? It may not even come up today. Do you have a one major piece of takeaway for someone to move forward with?
Absolutely. Those thank you notes, those thank you cards. In my briefcase, every presentation that I give, every coaching client, everything, I always have those thank you notes in my briefcase. And I'm always going to write a thank you note to that person. And it elevates you to such an extent, wow, he really cared, or he really thought of me. Or, imagine being in your office and then bringing the mail in, and the thank you note comes in the mail. You open it up and oh my God, it's not a bill. It's a thank you note. It's an amazing feeling. So all of that goes into the thank you note. So one takeaway that I would say is always write a thank you note.
Michael, a ton of information we've learned from you today. I would love to dive deeper into this. But to that point, if someone's on the edge of their seat too and wanting to learn more themselves, how can they get a hold of you?
Very easy. I have a website, michaelaforman.com. Okay? On there, you'll see the plethora of podcasts that I've been on. But you'll see I have 2 talks. I belong to a speakers bureau. I'm named in Who's Who as a communication. I even won an award for Networking Communications Expert 2024. Okay, so all of that is there. But the most important way to get hold of me on the very bottom of the website is a contact form. You fill out the contact form, and I will get back in touch with you within 24 hours.
I'm sure they can expect a thank you note in the mail to come through. I know. Well, awesome. Well, Michael, we appreciate your time today, sir. This has been a great episode. We wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew.